Want to 10x your growth? Discover how only 3 growth hacks in 10 days can change everything. Welcome to the 10-Day Growth Hacking Challenge with your host, Nader Sabri. Today, we are here with Marc Jarrett, shaking up the networking space. Some things are about to shock you, so be ready for what's about to come. Before we get kickstarted, this methodology, this challenge is based on the growth thinking methodology. If you want to do what we're doing here in this challenge, this is the answer to what we are doing here. Marc, welcome aboard. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Warm greetings from the United Kingdom to Dubai.
Fantastic. And welcome right back at you. And I see that it's nice and sunny over there, right?
No, you're sorely mistaken.
Am I? Oh, gosh.
It's grey and rainy, but that's why it's such a green and pleasant land.
There you go. There you go. Always the positive signs. Today, guys, it's a pleasure to introduce Marc. Marc is shaking up the networking area, especially on the virtual side of things. He basically ignited a lot of what he does on the basis of the pandemic. He was doing a lot of this beforehand, but when the pandemic came, he realized the importance of people yearning for human connection, especially on the professional networking side. As challenging as this can be, as people listen to this, we understand the social anxiety and the challenges when it comes to networking. And essentially, Marc solves a fundamental problem. And hear this out, he takes the pain out of networking, which I think can apply and be very attractive to many people. Whether you are at an entry-level position or at a CX level individual, the services that Marc provide at scale are phenomenally unique. One of the cornerstones of the technology that he uses is something that he advocates very loudly about, which is WhatsApp. And if anyone at WhatsApp or Facebook happens to be listening, it is important to tap into what he's about to tell you, as WhatsApp US market, which is, strangely enough, the market it comes from, happens to be where the largest penetration is required. And Marc is an advocate of that taking place. As a result of all this, Marc actually manages over 200 plus groups, and at 256, if I recall, is the maximum per group, gives Marc a direct access to 50,000 plus direct connections that he creates, that he lubricates and creates the right kinds of relationships. If you want to break it into a simpler term, Marc is almost like his own mini LinkedIn, but on cocaine. Pushing that up to another level. Marc, I'm not going to take more of the win. He has an incredible amount of networking assets that he has developed and evolved over time. I'm going to let Marc take it over. Marc, if you can tell us a little bit more about what you do. This is quite incredible. Guys, listen in. And as we go through this, those who want more information about Marc, you can click below for his information, get in touch with him. Marc, take the floor. Tell us more about what you do.
Sure. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I wrote an article in 2018 called The Wonderful World of Virtual Networking. Back then, it was almost conceptual and people didn't quite get it. Then along came the pandemic, and boy, did they get it, because there was no other way to network. But irrespective of the pandemic, virtual networking rocks because it's clean, it's free, and best of all, it's globality. Because if you go to a networking event in, say, Dubai, you're only going to meet people from that region. In WhatsApp groups and online more generally, literally the whole world is our playing field. And I use WhatsApp because it's so ubiquitous. I've been invited to give a TED talk called 2 Billion Reasons to use WhatsApp for virtual networking, because that's how many people use it. It's about a quarter of the world's population. And touching on what you were saying, you're right. It's the one country that doesn't use it so much is the United States of America. Only 1 in 5 Americans use WhatsApp. And usually that's just when they or their friends and family are traveling overseas for friends and family, for the free calls and the video calls. To me, that's a bonus. The actual networking takes place in WhatsApp groups, and that's primarily text driven. So the first thing I get people to do, or the first thing I ask people, I say, do you use WhatsApp on your computer? And about half of them do and half of them don't. And as you know, Nada, to use it on your computer is quite simple. You go to web.whatsapp.com and then you pair your smartphone to your computer. And it's much easier to use it for networking that way, because your keyboard and your screen on your computer is much larger than on your smartphone. And Absolutely. Heaven knows we stare at these smartphones enough as it is already. So yeah, it's much more effective to network in WhatsApp groups on your computer. So each WhatsApp group has got its own theme. So that might be construction, automotive, mergers and acquisitions, oil and gas, fashion, music, nanotechnology, biotech, you name it. Each industry has got its own WhatsApp group. And the rationale behind that is very simple. If you get 2 or more people in the same room that have an interest in biotechnology, it's more likely to lead to a meeting of minds and a possible friendship and or transaction.
Yep. I agree. I think what I really like about what you've done, and we've talked about this in other growth hacks, which is people calling it community building. And the issue with community building is everybody wants to build a community, but what they don't realize is there has to be one problem that brings everyone together, or an interest that is the binding agent for everyone to be there. And once the principle of that is there, and then you grease it up a little bit, you get people interested with new content, getting people talking a little bit more about maybe some new updates or whatever, however you decide to go about it. That's how a community online is actually really built. And so many people lose that aspect there, where we just want to build a community around our brand. Well, I mean, that's pretty well useless unless you solve a real problem, or you get people together who have a similar interest, just like what you've done in these 200 groups, which is quite incredible. And I got to tell you, Marc has shown me the list. They are very well segmented. He's done an excellent job in targeting them, even to a point which one you've invited me to, which is the Tesla and electric car group, which are just everybody who's like playing like a serious role in that. And the learning in there has been incredible. I mean, people bringing up things that you can't even imagine. And it's just like what Marc said, he brings these minds together and you just, the synergy explodes. Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
And networking remains an inherent part of the human condition. We are all hardwired to network and grow our tribes. I put a poll out on LinkedIn last year. About 10% of people don't like networking at all. They find it intimidating, a bit like public speaking. It's just not their gig. Most people quite like networking, but they just don't have the time. It's quite a time-consuming process to meet and engage with fellow human beings. So if they engage with my networking concierge service, I can effectively network for them. So I got a new client a couple of weeks ago. She's a gold trader from Paris. She hates networking, but she loves one-to-ones. So I just tenaciously seek out the people to help meet her business goals. And then I set up a 3-way call. On that call, I will break the ice, make the introduction, and walk away. I've done my job then. So yeah, I've been connecting people all my life. It's just that now I'm doing it professionally.
Yeah. And I think your structure, just to give a bit of background for those tuning in, the structure that Marc has is very interesting. He has a very interesting way of breaking the ice, and he has an introduction format that he gets everybody used to, including one of the ones I really like, which is the last one, say, tell us something about you that nobody knows. I'll never forget that one question at the very end. And it's a great icebreaker, because once you tell everybody about, I do this and I do that and I'm that, and at the end you say, oh, and by the way, I like, energy healing, and we're like, wow, we've never heard about that. And the conversation starts at the end of this ice-breaking process. And it's quite amazing. And just for those who understand as well, that Marc has different tiers of networking. So there's the WhatsApp groups, which is probably the lowest friction entry level, but he provides more advanced services for people who want to go deeper and wider and have more intimate introductions. And I think Marc is really onto something, because I'm one of those people in that category as well, where the time and effort to network is just not there, but it's a really important part and we love to do it. But being able to do it at the right levels and having to filter, what I find is the filtration, Marc, has always been the most difficult part. And you being that filter to help people to connect in a let's say more secure environment, I think is extremely, extremely valuable. Yeah.
And that's what you just said. Secure environment is the key. And what I've done, because at the end of the day, business boils down to two things, and that's people and trust. So what I've done is created this enormous ecosystem where people feel safe to engage with one another, and then the business comes later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, build a trust relationship and then business will flow. And if it doesn't, relationships continue and other things come out of it, which is really important, because I think the other thing I really want to point out, what I like about your approach is a non-transactional approach, but has a transaction objective at it, meaning build a relationship, but it's there for a reason. I mean, people are just not randomly networking. Otherwise it wouldn't be very useful for all of us, right? So he has a really good balance in doing this, and I've experienced it myself, so I can testify to that. So as we get started, I'm super excited to work with Marc to get this moving along, and congratulations for being nominated into the challenge. And as you know, the format is we get to know you first, as what we've done, and then we talk about your growth challenges, and then we jump into the 3 growth hacks. So you can give us a little bit of background. I mean, I can see that like you have this massive channel of a lot of stuff happening, which is incredible. That's a large part of what you do, is just that volume of activity. But it also creates scalability problems. And so if you can give us a bit of background to the growth challenges that we're going to be tackling or trying to resolve anyways with the growth hacks, if you can give us a bit of insight into that.
So, yeah, you're right that my business isn't fully scalable. My long-term plan is to actually make money from the liquidity events that ensue as a result of the existence of the network. So that might be a capital raise, merger or acquisition, finding staff, and whatnot. So that's the 3rd tier. The 1st tier is the low-hanging fruit, and that's getting people into my WhatsApp group ecosystem. So now that it's become quite large, it's become quite valuable. So I've got a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum tier structure for that. Bronze is 10 groups for £9.99 per month. There's no contractual, pay to play, so to speak. There's no binding contract. Silver gets some 25 groups, gold 50 groups, and platinum, they've got access to the entire network, plus they get access to Remo.co, which I helped launch a couple of years ago, which is like Zoom on steroids. It's much better for networking than Zoom is. I call the breakout rooms in Zoom virtual prisons. With Remo, you can actually network intuitively like you would in the real world.
Yep. Actually, since you're on that point, this is one of the things I was pointing out earlier, is that Marc is developing a series of assets that are designed to accelerate networking. And one of them is Remo, which is a Zoom competitor, and is designed actually specifically for networking rather than events, which plays a really important role in being able to kind of grease the wheels and enabling relationships to move a lot faster. And he has several different other things that he's working on in the background to make these other things work. So it's not just purely connecting people, but it's creating assets that accelerate the ability for people to use these relationships in more effective ways. So yeah, okay, cool. I just want to point it out because that's a really important part of what you do. So the growth challenge, I mean, let's break it down to a few points. I mean, what are some of the challenges when it comes to making all this come together and work?
And spreading awareness, essentially. And although my services are actually relevant for the majority of people, because most people do not have the time to network. So that's millions of people. However, there's a subset of people that I'm very interested in engaging with, and that's Americans that want to expand internationally. So if you go to my website, mjconsultancy.com, that's EMJAY consultancy.com, you'll see that one of the testimonials on there is from a gentleman called Ernest, who has pointed out how I helped him. He's an American business owner, and in the space of 2 months, I introduced him to more people than he thinks he would have met in his business lifetime, as a sort of super catalyst connector. Once I understood what his business goals were, I just introduced people to him. So any Americans that have an interest in global expansion are a sort of subset to the target market that I'm looking to reach out to. Not only can I show them how to use WhatsApp to the max, more importantly, I can start introducing them to people almost instantly once I have a better understanding of what their business goals are. Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So awareness, getting the right people in, profiling them properly, of course, so you can get the right connections in place. And then hand-holding. So the hand-holding services, or let's call them advanced services, kind of scaling people up from kind of the entry point into your more advanced services, just like what you've mentioned with the gentleman in the US, Ernest, who has given you a very, very clear indicator of how valuable what you do is. Okay, so moving forward in the next 10 days as we do this, I mean, what are the 3 growth hacks that you want to tackle to solving some of these growth challenges?
I'm going to start by reaching out to the people that have already agreed to pay to play, so to speak, and be part of my network, and upsell them my concierge service, whereby I can network on their behalf. Yep. Okay. I'm also going to be, I think, more active on LinkedIn. I go through periods of activity on LinkedIn. In fact, LinkedIn plays a pretty key role in what I do, because when people join my WhatsApp groups, I always encourage them to say, please say who you are, where you live, what you do, who you would like to meet, a fun fact, and include your LinkedIn profile. Why? Because on LinkedIn, you can see where they went to school, what connections you have in common, where they've worked, and who's recommended them. It's the ultimate online resume. But I sometimes call it the world's least social network. Because personally, I find the UX on LinkedIn a little bit clunky and slow. Yeah. So I see WhatsApp as a kind of conduit between LinkedIn and places like Zoom and Remo, where the real magic happens, or of course in person. Because the whole point of networking is to arrive at a meaningful one-to-one situation. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, and I agree with you. Yeah, making that happen. So the first growth hack is basically upgrading and upselling to the existing platform that you have, right? Which is the subscription basis, right? And then after that, well, I guess, yeah, you want to upgrade them through the different levels of subscription. And once you get them upgrading through the different levels of subscription, is introducing your advanced services and then pushing towards your advanced services as part of your funnel, correct? Correct. Yeah. The other growth hack is, I've only just scratched the surface really, but when I built this ecosystem, it was free of charge. And what I've been doing is reaching out to members of my network, and I ask them very simply, do you find value in what I do? And most of them have been saying yes. And then I present them with the menu of options. The options. But I still have only just begun that process. I've got quite a large network. But it's also a great opportunity to catch up with people, because networking isn't just about hunting, it's about farming. and cultivating the existing relationships that we already have.
Yep.
But I'm the kind of guy that can reach out to people, even like I recently connected with someone that I haven't spoken with for 9 years.
Wow.
But it's all good.
Yeah.
We've all got people like that in our networks.
100%.
And it's all good. I don't know about you, but I've got personal friends in my life who I don't speak to them sometimes for months on end, but we're still friends.
Yeah. I have a lot of relationships like that too. I mean, some of my really, really friends I've known for a very long time, we always joke around when we connect. It's almost like we just left off when the last time we connected. So whether it was 6 months or 6 years in between, it's almost like it didn't exist. It was like we just felt like we've just caught up with each other. And that's a sign of really good friendship. I mean, the pandemic has taught me a lot about lifelong friends, people who have always been valuable, not in the sense of commercial, so leave that aside, but people who've been very valuable as real friends at all times through your life, even at hard times and good times and whatever in between. And those relationships have come under the spotlight for so many people, including myself, during the pandemic, where you want to really reach out and like, are you okay? Are you doing well? Can I help you somehow? And just sharing stories. And so, the pandemic has a, it's kind of like a blessing in disguise in many ways. And I've done talks about this, and I know it's tough to say, especially for those of us who suffered directly from it or have had family or relatives, who have suffered, including me. I mean, it, hit me up pretty hard as well. But in many ways, it has its own blessings. And, part of it is this reconnection with people and reconnecting with the environment around us. And that's why I think what you do is super crucially important. And to your point about LinkedIn, LinkedIn is kind of funny because it's almost like the difference between personal and professional networking. And so personal networking is, people get together for a barbecue and it's kind of easygoing, right? But when it comes to professional networking, there's a lot of social anxiety and it's kind of awkward. I don't know what to say. How do I introduce myself? How will this be received? And, all those kind of like little tiny things that get in the way. And so kind of like, the UI and UX of LinkedIn, which your feedback has been common by many people, including myself, kind of reiterates that exact kind of social anxiety with this over-structuredness, right? It's a little too rigid. You get used to it. I mean, you navigate through it once you get used to it, but it's not like that intuitive, like what you're saying. But anyways, that's not your problem, my problem. We're learning how to work with it, aren't we?
The pandemic has highlighted many things, including the fact that we're saving a ton of time, money, and carbon.
Yes.
By not flying and driving everywhere all the time and pumping pollutants into the atmosphere. Yep. I mean, you're 3,500 miles from me right now. For us to have this face-to-face meeting, it would cost all day and a ton of money.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. Even locally, I mean, I've always been pro building remote teams. I've been doing it for a decade because I've always seen the benefit of exactly what you're talking about, but it wasn't a norm. Now the pandemic has turned this into a norm. Now they're trying to get out of that norm. You see like, oh, let's all get physical again. Now there's nothing wrong with that. I prefer connecting physically with people, but there are benefits to virtual that allow us to streamline our time to do things in more productive and effective ways. And so the time we spend with people is actual real quality time. Right? I don't know,
exactly.
Man.
And in the frenetic atmosphere, I've been to 2 real world networking events in the last couple of weeks. One of them was in London, and it was in the frenetic, networking events can be quite frenetic and highly charged.
Yep.
My hearing isn't what it used to be. And I found myself struggling to hear a lot what was said. There were 100 or more people in that room. There was a DJ playing awesome music. But that's called ambient noise. And when you've got ambient noise, I struggle to hear sometimes what's said. So that's another advantage of virtual networking. Don't have those issues. Yeah. And also getting a meaningful connection in an environment where you're just surrounded by people who are just wanting to network, it can be difficult getting that sort of meaningful connection. like we do when we have a one-to-one on Zoom or Vimeo.
100%. No, 100%. It's funny because when I go to a restaurant or a setting where I'm meeting somebody, one of the first things I do is I ask someone obviously working there to turn the music down. And that can be challenging sometimes. There's debate, like keep it up, keep it down, but ultimately, I mean, people are there to connect, whether it's a restaurant or a pub or wherever it is. I mean, you need to kind of lower it down because I can't really have a conversation with somebody. I need to hear them, they need to hear me. So it's nice to have the ambient noise, but it's got to go down. So it's one of the first requests I make when I go to a place, especially if you're sitting in a corner. So I like to take a corner. It's happened to me actually a few days ago. So we took a corner. And because this echoing was very loud, and so the lady kind of
looked at me. You're a corner man, are you?
Like the corner man. So I mean, it was a little bit more intimate in the corner, connecting rather than being in the middle of the restaurant. But she told us like, well, because you're in the corner, it's a bit loud. We said, we know, but if you can just lower it down, and they did. They were very polite about it. They completely get it. I mean, yeah, there you go. Okay. But completely agree. Well, anyways, so Marc, I mean. Super excited to have you here on the challenge. I think this is going to be very interesting for so many people to watch how this is going to happen. To kind of recap when it comes to the growth hacks, we're essentially going to be looking at how do we take the lowest friction point when it comes to the entry level into Marc's networking ecosystem, all the way to the very top, which is the one that we will be working and defining, which will be more of a more hand-holding service. I guess I'll call it that for now, and working our way through that. So the 3 growth hacks are going to be progressive in nature, connecting with each other, and we're going to see what happens. Yeah.
Very, very good. Another thing I will be doing is searching for people on LinkedIn that are in industries pertinent to my groups. So, for example, construction. I'm going to search for construction.
Yep.
Find a list of people that are involved in construction and just invite them to my group.
Yep.
I just say, hi, would you like to join my construction WhatsApp group?
Yep.
And more often than not, people say yes, because it's not salesy. It's just a very, it piques their interest because that's the industry that they're involved in.
Yep. I think, so I like this growth hack. And one of the things I'll challenge you on as you do this, and let's experiment, because that's what this is all about, is if you're going for the construction industry, and the beauty about LinkedIn is its ability to filter. I mean, it can really filter. Try to create a construction CX level group. And so to try to see if you can build the different, but the same levels of kinds of people within an industry, and see if that creates a bit more synergy or not, because somebody at the CX level may not be so comfortable being with someone lower. You never know. I mean, it's just one of those things about networking. I would challenge that. You can have multiple construction groups, not just one, but one for kind of like, people in the management level, one at the leadership level, leadership in construction, right? And
you're absolutely right. It's got to be broken down more.
Yes.
Tech won't cut it, but if it's femtech or fintech or martech, there's so many techs.
Yep.
But you need to break it down.
Yep. And that's going to help you a lot. Yeah, because you see, you're so well segmented that like you've got the general topics there, but then breaking it down into testing the different levels of people in those topics. So now from 200, you can easily go up to several thousand groups by doing that, right? Like breaking it into 3 levels, right? So I think this will be an excellent opportunity to experiment with that, to see what happens, because this is at the very beginning of your funnel, recruitment, bringing people into your ecosystem and recruiting them and entering them at the right levels. I think is to be super crucial, because I really believe that, a CX level in the construction industry, he's probably asking himself the same type of questions as another CX level individual in the same industry. And cultivating those type of conversations could be very valuable, because the type of insights that will cross over will be quite incredible. And being the guy that does that and facilitates that makes you even more valuable.
Right.
Yeah.
And my nickname is becoming now Mr. WhatsApp. So
Mr. WhatsApp.
That kind of sticks. And a lot of people don't see WhatsApp is actually a really useful business tool.
It is.
They don't make that association, because it's all about connecting people. I
agree with you. And you got to continue with this advocation. I mean, I hope that maybe one day you can become an actual brand ambassador for WhatsApp, because you're so pushing the envelope on it in the sense of advanced functionality and usage of it. And you're an individual I think WhatsApp should be definitely working and connecting with, even as a brand ambassador, because you speak so much about it. And I agree with you. Are you
listening, Mark Zuckerberg?
Zuck, come on in. So WhatsApp is excellent at lubricating relationships. Like what you do, the first thing that I do once I connect with someone, regardless of channel, I'll say, hey, are you on WhatsApp? Let's connect there. It makes life so much easier, because it's so much easier to say, hey, good morning, just saying hello to you this morning on a WhatsApp than an email or any other channel. I mean, it flows.
Yeah, I keep email for important stuff like agreements, contracts and whatnot. But for day-to-day communications, it's WhatsApp all the way.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Mr. WhatsApp is joined us. I didn't know that was your nickname. I'm going to start using it now, man. So we got Marc Jarrett here, shaking things up in virtual networking space. You need to check him out, learn more about what he does. He puts a lot of thought leadership information out in the general public to teach people about how to network in a much more powerful way, especially in the circumstances we are in here today. We will be growth hacking his funnel, looking at from the entry point all the way to the final part, which he provides his advanced networking services, basically lubricating and accelerating his networking ecosystem. Marc, welcome aboard. I look forward to making the next 10 days having some fun.
Breaking news. I've got breaking news. Literally just now, I got an email from my old school, which I visited at the weekend. I was inspired to create a WhatsApp group to leverage. In the UK, we have something called the Old Boys Network. You know, if you went to a good school like I did, the last school I went to was a good school. I'm going to start leveraging networking and connect with all those old boys out there that went to the same school that I did, because then we've got that in common.
Yep.
And
alumni groups, creating alumni groups through your networking can be super powerful, right? Harvard, Columbia, I mean, the list goes on. And you can easily track these guys down on LinkedIn, very clearly target them.
And this all goes back to what you were saying at the top of this. It's all about community building.
Yep.
Because a WhatsApp group in and of itself won't do much. You need to have a networking jockey like me to make the introductions and keep the flow going. So if anyone wants a community built, I'm your go-to.
Yep. He's done it left, right, and center. 200 groups, 50,000 plus people, completely lubricating through his ecosystem. So, and it will continue to grow with the way you're doing it. And we will work in this challenge to make that work in a much more effective way. All right. Thank you, Marc. Guys, check him out below for more information. We'll see you guys in the next video for the first hack in 3 days.